Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons review show. And we actually won a game, Mike. We actually might be a little bit more positive for a change and have something good to talk about. So we're going to break down the match. 3 points, that's all that mattered. We go on to Newcastle looking in a bit of a brighter spot in the league. And yeah, we're going to break down the match, see what we did well, see what we need to improve on, and yeah, get your thoughts along the way in the stream. So, Mike, 3 points in the bag, moves us up to 14th, I believe, before Everton play tonight. So, looks a little bit more comfortable now. Relax a few of those nerves. How are you feeling after that win?
I wouldn't say feel a bit more comfortable. We're only a point above relegation. So, there you go. I'll just drop in a slight tad of realism just before we get in. But no, it was a must-win game, and we won the game. I know there's been a lot of talk about we're really poor, we're really this. Actually, I personally think under the circumstances of the game and the magnitude of needing to win and how Southampton were consistently trying to press us and limit space, I think we did well in that kind of pressure environment that we had to play in. And we did make some chances. We could have actually been a lot more comfortable had we made a couple of different decisions along the way throughout the game. So I'm not as negative about the performance as others. And I think if Moyes came out and said it was a good performance or a decent performance, I probably would have just gone, actually, this time I'm not going to have anything to say against that. Because I think it was, in the light of day, it was a decent performance because we needed a win. We got the win.
I think that was what it was kind of the key, really. I mean, even Rice saying it on Instagram and stuff, it was all about the win. It was all about the result. So let's move on to kind of how we lined up against Southampton. So we went with the 4-3-3. There were a few injury doubts before the game, but Agard and Emerson managed to pass their fitness tests. And one that didn't was Scamacca, which meant Danny Ings played up front. And yeah, pretty much unchanged other than Fabianski coming back in goal and Kera, coming in at right back again. Bit of a surprise. I think most people probably thought Kufal would come in after playing 2 games in the international break, but Kera was the one that was chosen over Ben Johnson. And that midfield three stuck together: Rice, Paqueta, Soucek. I think you can see from the image there that there was one standout in the midfield three, which we will talk about. But in terms of Southampton, it was pretty much what we expected in terms of their system and approach, which we spoke about in our preview. So, yeah, there wasn't too much surprise from when I was watching from what we'd gone through in the preview, to be honest. It was pretty much spot on. So, yeah, well done us. Well done you, Mike. The first kind of 5 minutes, I thought we were doing pretty well. We were keeping control of the ball pretty well. They were trying to press, but we actually had a couple of moments where we were playing in their half. And then after that 5 minutes, the next 20 minutes before we scored, which we'll get into, it was getting pretty poor. And I think just before we scored, the boos around the stadium and the moans were crazy. Like, people were really not happy. So yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But what did you make of that opening kind of 20-25 minutes of play? Because Southampton looked to really press high and we just didn't seem to have an answer for it.
Yeah, I think we didn't necessarily have an answer for it. I think sometimes the problem was we're so used to receiving the ball and then turning back to play it back rather than maybe making that forward pass. It's more about retaining rather than being, then progressing. So I think there were elements at times where, we would receive the ball and Rice would do it. He would turn back and then he'd kind of, try and play it backwards. Some of it was also us trying to draw Southampton up the pitch so we can kind of get at them. The long ball play was pretty awful. It's at the end of the day, we've got going against Benderak and we're going against Chileta Carr. Both are really good in the air. And you're hitting the ball, long to Danny Ings, and it wasn't really working. That when we were talking about obviously playing a long ball game, we were making reference to being able to switch the ball quickly from side to side to exploit how Southampton like to be compact. So when we did switch the ball quickly and move it quickly, we actually looked a lot better. But yeah, that first 20 minutes at times, it was a bit turgid because we wasn't really moving the ball quick enough, or we wasn't necessarily drawing Southampton enough to break their press. But by and large, though, I was also I was comfortable with where we were because we hadn't given Southampton anything as well in that period.
To be honest, Mike, towards the end of that 20-25 minute spell, I was not comfortable at all. It just felt like they were growing into the game. Although they hadn't really threatened much, I think Walcott had a half chance to kind of hit the side net, and they were just growing into it, and we didn't have an answer for it. That was my main issue. It was like, how are we going to beat this? Because they were pressing us high, and we just didn't have the control in midfield. We, like you mentioned, Rice was often trying to pass backwards when maybe he could have turned out, but I think that was just due to their press, and Lavia in particular in midfield was really good for them. And he was
Lavia was really good, yeah.
Like really set the tone for them. But yeah, I just think that the midfield three we had of Paqueta, Rice, Souček, I was looking at it, and I just thought, the only one that's really going to come and try and get in that pocket of space, which we spoke about in the preview, is Paqueta. And Souček wasn't doing that. And yeah, we're going to talk about Souček in more detail, but that was a glaringly obvious issue for me in that first 25 minutes.
Yeah, no, it was. It's Paqueta was keep dropping in, had to drop deeper to get the ball. When it did come to Souček, he was trying to play it quickly. There was a lot of times where that didn't go so well, and we'll get into that. But yeah, I personally felt comfortable because, again, I didn't really see, even though Southampton were going into the game, as you say, I didn't really see any threat in what they were doing. And in fact, where they were getting any kind of joy was basically because we were allowing them those positions. Like, we was allowing them to go out wide. We pretty much suffocated that middle. So for me, I looked at it as quite a decent tactical game. I think we played quite well, especially in the first half tactically, because I think we nullified and limited what they did. Most of our chances come from kind of quick breakaways, and we did actually have some decent chances. It was just that last bit of decision making or that final ball that let us down.
Yeah, I think that was the big thing as well. We were creating some decent chances in that first half, and the first one that kind of came about, Mike, if you want to just talk us through this, it actually came down that left-hand side, and we've been using it so much in that first half that was definitely the key area for us to exploit, because we were kind of producing that overload that we said in the preview as well, and they just weren't following it. And we had the advantage over there, and Kyle Walker-Peters was just all over the place. He didn't have much support from his right mid, and yeah, we just exploited that really well. It was just that final ball and that cutting edge again that just let us down. But we got into some really good positions in the first half.
Yeah, and I saw there was a lot of talk about Benrahma had a bad game, but pretty much everything we created in that first half came down that left-hand side, and he was involved in it, either by releasing Emerson or even releasing, we'll get onto one of those chances, Bowen, as well. It all came through him. So as much as he was maligned for not doing stuff, he also made some critical tackles as well. But in this sequence, obviously, the ball gets fed into Benrahma. He does actually well to hold it. Where I was in the crowd, it's quite funny because they're sitting there telling him to spin. So he's got nowhere to spin to. He's got a player on it. So obviously he manages to hold the ball for a momentary second, and obviously then lay it in. Now, once Emerson got the ball and got down, what was frustrating is when you look at this position, he's looking across and he sees where Souček is. Souček's going to be in a basically a pocket of space because Ings is taking one of the defenders back. I think Kileta Carr is the one in the middle. And then you have Perraud, who is playing left back, is also going to follow Bowen. So in fact, the way they're all moving is essentially going to create a pocket of space in that piece. If Souček moves to where essentially Kileta Carr is, or at least moved over to his left, he pretty much is going to have a free shot on goal.
Yeah.
And this was the problem all game I found with Souček when he kind of got into these situations. He just made the wrong choice and just looked laboured and didn't really actually look like he had a true interest in getting there. And obviously Emerson's seen where it is. Now, again, he doesn't hit it properly, Emerson. He does kind of scuff it slightly. And, Kileta Carr was able to just kind of to step out and poke it away. And then they kind of get away with that opportunity. But it was an early warning or early sign of that we were going to get some joy down that side.
Yeah. I think also, we kind of always allude to this. It's always kind of down that left-hand side that we will look to attack. And, teams do that. They will have a balance to their play. I mean, Newcastle, our opponent, come up in on Wednesday. They do the exact same thing where Dan Burns, the one sitting in at left back, they have set Maximan as kind of the 1v1. Mm-hmm. And on the right side is where they try and create overloads and stuff. So it's kind of similar to how we set up with kind of Bowen sticking out there. And if you're playing Kehrer right back, it's rare that you're going to get much joy out of him from an overlapping perspective. So Emerson's really the one that we need to emphasize. But I thought, the opening 15-20 minutes, it was really frustrating to watch just because the more we kind of let Southampton play and press, the less we kind of had control of it, and the more we kind of sat back a little bit more, as we've seen, and we just didn't have that answer to play through. And I think that was the biggest issue for me. Souček was just so bad in that first half. Like, we've all been critical of Souček, but we've also said like he will do a lot of defensive stuff and he will do a lot of, you know, other contributions that maybe go unnoticed. But yesterday he just didn't do anything at all. Like, Paqueta was having to do a lot of the defensive stuff that Souček wasn't doing. He was almost playing as a number 10 a lot for the first half, Souček, and it just left a massive gap because we don't know how to coordinate a press, and we don't really know how to kind of fill those pockets. But yeah, as the game kind of grew on, you know, we did get that goal from a set piece, so that kind of gave us some breathing room. A long VAR check for those in the ground, about 4 minutes, I think it was in the end. So yeah, and it was actually Kehrer who provided the assist. So what did you make of that goal? And you know, getting the lead when we did.
Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant cross from Kehrer. It was a well worked free kick for once. Southampton tried to play an offside line. Obviously, we deliberately put players offside to then drop them in. But the ball from Kehrer is in a brilliant position. Goalkeeper pretty much had no chance, really. He kind of pulls himself away. If he stood in that kind of spot, he probably saves it. But he moves himself right over to the right-hand side and pretty much creates a massive pocket on the left for Aged. So once, obviously, Aged gets there, he's unmarked. He has no problem whatsoever in which to, you know, get his head to it and, you know, knocks it in off the post. And, you know, you say we had to wait 3 minutes to get this view to see what was happening. Obviously, one of the thoughts was, I think Souček is just ahead of him as well. And they were just trying to work out as to the defender just behind Aged, whether he was in an offside. Obviously, he was one keeping him onside or not. And, you know, it was quite fortunate for us in that he was onside. It was an absolute quality header, brilliant cross. I think it was a well-worked free kick. Yeah, I don't think there's much else to say for it. I think there were problems from Southampton's side, but again, we alluded to this in the preview. We said they're not great at defending crosses. They don't tend to follow runners, and they are susceptible and weak at set pieces.
Yeah,
two of our biggest chances, obviously one of them was converted into a goal, came from set pieces.
Yeah, I think that was the perfect time to score because, as I mentioned before, they were just growing into the game and we just had not really much control over what we were doing, and the plan was not really working with things up front. It was becoming more isolated. So yeah, it did look like a set piece was going to be the difference for us to go ahead. So we did go ahead. Probably one of the few times we have done this season is go ahead in a match. So we would then have, you know, we then had something to defend. And other than that, I thought we were pretty comfortable, and it kind of drew Southampton out a little bit once we got that first goal in the first half, and we started to see a couple more gaps appear, and we started to play through the lines a little bit better. One of them came from a counter attack, and I was laughing at the time because it would have been funny to see Kehrer score going through 1-on-1, but how it actually came about was pretty nice. And, you know, we can go through it here, Mike, kind of just how we countered. And, you know, you can see the body Southampton have up there, you know, what's eight players there in
so
it's maybe 9.
It was from a free kick as well.
Yeah.
And they try and be clever and play it short to Armstrong. But Paqueta, who was defensively, he was absolutely on it all game. I think he ended the first half with 9 tackles.
Yeah, I think he had 10 tackles in the first half, yeah.
It's an incredible stat. I know people don't think that's very much, but from a midfielder, and bearing in mind he tackled more than Declan Rice does, who's a defensive midfielder, and I think he out-tackled him by at least 4.
Yeah.
It's quite a statistic. But yeah, he was brilliant. He comes out so quick to kind of press Armstrong, manages to obviously utilise his body really well, and then kind of gets the ball out from his feet to then roll it out to Ben Rama, who's obviously just breaking out of the box. But look where Kehrer is. Kehrer's right on the edge of our box. He absolutely bombed down that pitch to get into a position for this. And, you know, there's a lot of criticism made about Ben Rama and his left foot. His left foot was pretty good yesterday.
It was a great pass.
His ping on his left was brilliant. There was a couple of crosses in the second half, again, with his left foot. Clearly been working on it. But again, you know, he does so well in here because he kind of slows down the pace. He's looking to see what's happening. Obviously, we mentioned about we've got to have a player that's going to be willing to come in the inside and run beyond. I don't think any of us ever expected it to be Kehrer.
Yeah.
And is a fantastic ping. And I think he was just caught in two minds as to whether, he could have gone for a lob. He was quite far out. I think he's just got himself in a position where he's not quite sure whether to kind of control it and take it on, or whether it actually to attempt and go for the lob. And, it was quite far out. So had he lobbed it and done it, I think we would have been talking about what a brilliant goal. I don't think, I think we've all been probably, mockingly saying goal of the season from our perspective. But in the end, it just kind of deflects off his shin and just kind of rolls into the goalkeeper. And it was just a bit disappointing. But whilst it's disappointing, what is actually encouraging is actually to see a player, and particularly a defender, to actually go, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
He spotted the opportunity and went for it. And it's something that needs to be praised. I know I've seen a lot of people having a pop at Kehrer. He had probably his best game, one of his best games.
He was really good yesterday. I really didn't understand that criticism yesterday.
No, he had good moments going forward. He put in an absolutely superb cross for our goal.
Yeah.
The one criticism I would say is that he doesn't always get forward enough. There's a couple of opportunities where we did actually get down the left, where had he got in towards the back post, we might have had a better option to keep the ball going. Something that's
again, I feel like that's just a tactical thing. I feel like that because our play comes down that left, he's probably been told, sit in while we're going forward with Emerson and stuff. So I do agree, but at the same time, it's like, well, you don't expect Kehrer, a centre back, to be doing that much.
I think we would have seen Soufal sit a little bit higher.
Yeah,
because I think that's natural for Soufal to do that. But I also don't think that opportunity comes about with Soufal on the pitch, because he's not as quick. He would have had all the heart and desire to do it, but his legs would have been able to have gotten there is another question. But it was a great breakaway as well, and the pass was fantastic to get it into there. It was just it wasn't. It's one of those where you just go, on another day, he probably takes a completely different kind of route there, and he probably actually does just chip it. He probably just thinks,
I think he just couldn't believe that he got himself in that position. I think he just kind of froze in the moment, was like, what do I do now? And he kind of just got it under his feet. But I think Alison in the comments makes a pretty decent point here, saying, even though almost all the players had a decent game yesterday, it was still quite a dreadful watch, and it's quite confusing. I think overall, you have to just look at it from the grand scheme of things, in that, yes, most players played a pretty good game, bar a couple. But we were pretty solid throughout. They didn't really create many chances, and I think that's the most important thing at the moment. Is
the first half in particular. Obviously, there was a fantastic save from Fabianski, I think around about the 30th minute or so.
Yeah.
And then we went down the other end and also had a good opportunity. And there was a really good save against Perraud, which obviously massively needed that. And, again, we keep saying there was everything that seemed to be good came down our left-hand side. Kehrer's opportunity. Benrahma down the left, putting it through. The early chance that we mentioned was, again, it was Benrahma being holding it up and putting it through or laying it onto Emerson.
Yeah.
Another opportunity was when, again, Benrahma slows the play down, plays it into that channel. We mentioned this. They do tend to bit compact, and they will leave you spaces if you're able to kind of work the ball quickly. This was one of those moments. And, what was frustrating was, we get into this position and he then stops. He basically cuts back. But there was a point where if he was to have floated the ball in, it was Souček versus Lieva. And you would have thought, whilst Lieva's about 6'1" or so, I don't think he would have won in a aerial duel where momentum.
Yeah, Souček's running onto it, isn't he?
And it's one of those moments where you thought, well, had it been floated into the area, because Kjelleta Carr is being moved out of the way by Ings' movement. Obviously, the other centre back, Benderak, is obviously across by the right back. Had he floated that in, it might have been a chance. And it was just frustrating, because when you kind of then look at it, he then stops, cuts back, and then as he then kind of goes again, you can see again we've got two players here. We've got Bowen, who is pretty much being man-marked. And again, rather than kind of floating the ball or trying to dink it in, it's kind of just hit and scuffed along the kind of floor. And, Ings again pulls, I think it's Benderak out of position. Bowen is being marked heavily by Perraud. He can't really move, so he can't get into that space that was created by Ings. And as we say, Souček was there at the back post. And it was just, again, there's that wrong option that was chosen, and that wrong kind of connection that is just kind of, it let.
Well, we've lost Mike. But yeah, what he was basically saying was, I mean, in this situation here, we had so many times in that first half where Emerson was kind of, looking to put in those crosses, but just hesitated, and we didn't really have that kind of movement or desire inside the box maybe as well to kind of create that opportunity. But Mike, you're back.
Yeah, no, sorry, I don't know what happened. Just keep me out.
Yeah, just saying about kind of overall, it was really kind of frustrating. Again, like it often comes up where we get in these little positions, especially down that left-hand side. It's just that final product, that final pass into the box. And that little bit of movement that you'll see a top-class team do it. I mean, look at Man City against Liverpool the other day. Look at the movement they have in the box of their players. They know exactly where to be and how to cut it back.
Getting people into the area and having people with desire to get in there. I think there's one of our big problems is we don't commit numbers.
Yeah.
We commit numbers in the opposition half, but we don't commit them to the area, and that's part of our problem. And it prevents us from getting a goal and actually taking advantage of your opposition. And right at the end of the half, again, great work down the left-hand side. This is where everything that came good in the game came down that left. The only time we did anything really of note on the right-hand side was the cross from Kerr on the free kick. Nothing really came and built up down that right-hand side. I think Kerr had one opportunity where he kind of cut in. But again, we were so lopsided, and that is one of our problems. We are very
as well. It kind of comes from a Declan Rice kind of sitting on that left-hand side a bit more as well. I mean, look at Declan Rice's heat maps in every game. It's always that left channel. That is probably why our build-up tries to go through that way.
Our left side is our strongest side, so we played there. Soucek kind of plays a bit more to the central, to the right. So again, our build-up is not as strong there because we don't have a player who is as strong. Paqueta's given that bit more of a free roam. Again, as we say, defensively, he was fantastic. And he also was helping us to knit things together. And the Bowen opportunity was both great, but also really frustrating for me. Because when I was watching the game, I sit at that end, at that angle, and I can see it. And we were just screaming for him to put it to Paqueta. And you'll know why when I see it, because whilst it's a fantastic shot, it's a brilliant shot. It's one of those moments where you go, if you score it, you deserve all the praise in the world. When you hit a crossbar, you effectively miss because it's not technically on target. Then you've got to question the decision making because that could have been a potential goal for us. Paqueta may have missed, granted, 100%. It's all shoulda, woulda, couldas, ifs, buts, and maybes. But the truth is, there was a player in a better position, but Bowen is so one-track minded and doesn't look up that it really does at times prevent us from actually taking advantage of really great opportunities because he's so single-minded. And in this bit, again, I will praise him, but I also would say again that where he could have done better. Benrahma gets the ball, brilliant ball down there. This is something we mentioned. Bowen has to come in with Danny in to kind of work on the fact that those defenders are going to leave gaps and they will play a high line. And the weight on the pass was great. Gets it into feet. Danny Ings does well to hold back to create space. And in the moment Bowen cuts in, you can see here, no one is aware of Paqueta. He could simply roll it across. Now, as I say, it was either ignored or not seen. If it's ignored, he's obviously backed himself, and you kind of have to go, that's a good thing. Fair play. You've backed yourself. You've got yourself in this position. You've backed yourself to score. But if he's not seen, that is not good. Let's put it this way: Man City would see that pass. Man City would likely make that pass. It's a matter of putting the team or yourself over the team in this situation. And whilst Bowen does well, and he doesn't actually get a good shot off with his weak foot, you again kind of see, obviously, he hits crossbar, but you see again, before he's even taken that shot, a small, clever dink over the Chaleta car. You've got Paqueta in absolute acres of space. And again, it's an option that wasn't taken, possibly the better option. But again, we haven't taken it. We've hit the crossbar. Obviously, it hasn't gone against us. But those are the types of moments where you maybe have to question the players' decision-making and question as to, have they put their self or their own personal kind of glory above doing something that was actually better in that circumstance for the team. And again, like I say, I'm praising Bo because he did incredibly well. Great shot. But there are elements of that where you don't even appear to be aware of the full picture or what else is going around. You've kind of got tunnel vision and went, I'm just going to have a shot, rather than actually going, is someone else in a better position to exploit this situation?
Yeah, I think to kind of counter it, I totally agree. He should be passing in that situation if the option is there. And, I think what Bowen did really well in that sequence is he got into that position. He kind of worked in that run that we mentioned in the preview, got in behind. Benrahma played a lovely ball through. And, we can take a look here just again at the kind of the position he was in at this stage of the match, of the phase of play. In this situation, it's easy to kind of get sucked into taking the shot, and especially because Bowen is, naturally wanting to score goals, and he is a goal scorer by trade, and maybe not this season, but he prefers to take those options. But it doesn't really look like a shooting option here. But as we kind of move it on to when he does shoot, the chances of him scoring from here are pretty low, especially on his weak foot. So he should be passing. But the problem with Bowen is when he gets into those positions in the box, he will keep his head down. And I think that's one thing he maybe needs to develop a lot more is, just taking that little second to kind of just pick your head up, because Paqueta's there. Granted, he might not score it, but the only thing I will say on this is it's probably a tough pass to make, because it can look a little bit easier from that angle. But when you have the ball at your feet, like Bowen did there, to play that pass at that split second, it would have to be perfect, because the defender's there and he could easily intercept that if he just steps into that gap. So I think images sometimes can be a little bit misleading with the amount of space.
That's again why we're saying it could be a chip into Paqueta as opposed to an actual pass. An actual pass is getting cut out 100%. But also when you get to, wrong one here. When you get to here, they are not aware of that. They're ready for the shot.
Yeah.
This still doesn't actually show us the way that they move across. So if you take it to here, you can obviously see where he comes to. So there was the opportunity to lay it across here with a bit of pace. And then Paqueta's movement is either going to bring the ball out and into a position where he can shoot with his right foot, or it's possibly going to draw a foul from the defender as he comes out and tries to lunge for it, and Paqueta knocks it past. So it could have actually developed into a penalty, a clear shot on goal, maybe even a cutback for, say, Ings, who's offside in that first phase.
Yeah.
So there's umpteen possibilities that could have come from that one situation had we made a different choice. And this is what we're kind of saying, is that had we made different choices in that first half, we could have put the game to rest. It could have been dead and buried at half time.
I think that's the big thing. We're doing it a lot, especially at home. We've definitely improved at home. Our performance have definitely improved. We drew against Villa, but we had so many chances in that match to finish them and get that second goal, and we just didn't. And again, it kind of happened in that Southampton match where we got ourselves ahead with that set piece. We started to ease into the game a bit more, have a bit more success, like we were mentioning, with those through balls and, creating some chances. But we just don't have that cutting edge. And it's really frustrating, because we need to click. We need to click in these games. And we got, we'll get into it, but we did get away with it in the end, right at the end with their chance. So we got in at halftime 1-0. I was feeling pretty happy at that point. We'd started to create a few more chances, seemed a little bit more settled. And I thought, this is going to suit Moyes a little bit more, because we have something to hold on to, which he loves to do. And the spaces will open up, because Southampton have been pressing a lot. And you just think that the gaps will automatically start opening up as they tire. And again, it came in the second half. Our best chance came from a set piece. And what did you make of this, Mike? Because it was hard to see in real time, because I was down the other end. But looking back on it, it's a massive chance. And again, it's another one that's just been squandered again.
Yeah, I think this comes after Southampton's hitting the crossbar, actually. If we're talking about the Paqueta one, I think is one.
No, the crossbar came right at the end. It came like literally 3 minutes from the 90th minute. So this would have been before, I think. So
you still want about Paqueta's chance, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but it was a really good corner as well. Again, well worked. Something, and again, it's something that we've seen. I can't remember which game it was, where Paqueta scored at the back post from a corner.
Newcastle, yeah.
Yeah, so against Newcastle, pretty much almost carbon copy in many ways. But, as we took it, we had both, I think it was Antonio standing on the goalkeeper blocking one of the defenders. We also had Zuma as well. So they're both creating blockers in that piece. Southampton were going for a zonal marking, and it was bad, the marking there. Obviously, Paqueta is just completely free. Not one of their players have paid him a blind bit of notice. And it just gets slightly under it. Had he maybe delayed his run by, a second or so, he might have been able to have got actually up to kind of head it. And it kind of just ends up just flicking it down towards Paqueta. And the problem is Paqueta is, as he controls it, he's already leaning back. And so he's already kind of not in control. And he's then lashed it. He's just gone, I just need to put power into it. The funny part is, if he scuffs it, it potentially rolls in the back of the net. It's one of those ones where if you hit it less cleanly, you fire it, put it into the back of the net. But in this case, he just absolutely levers it because he's off balance. He knows he needs to probably put a bit of power into it to get it past the keeper. And, he just ends up leaning back too much and then it clearing over. Had that gone in, obviously that was it. That was game, set and match at that stage. And it was just, again, another point where we get a really good opportunity, but we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot just because that little bit of composure or that little bit of control just wasn't there.
Yeah, I think it's just, again, we're repeating the same point every week, but so frustrating that we just can't be clinical in them situations because that is such a big chance. Like, he's literally 3 yards away, unmarked at the back post, and he's just leaning back. It's just a sloppy thing to do at that stage. And yeah, that really would have killed the game. And, as long as it's 1-0, especially, West Ham, a team, they're going to get another chance against you. So it did come, and it came from, again, pretty sloppy defending, and they brought on about a 7-foot striker in Anachu, and you just knew that something was going to happen with him. He was absolutely awful the whole game. He'd come on.
He was terrible. Everything bounced off him.
He couldn't do anything. But as soon as he came on, you just knew that he's going to get something if they just put it in the box, especially with Ward-Prowse. And again, something we mentioned in the pre-match, which I'm sure most people are aware of anyway. But Ward-Prowse's danger from those kind of areas, whether it be a set piece or just open play in those kind of pockets. And it was about 3 minutes from the end, I think, and they found themselves in this position. 5 minutes from the end. So 4 minutes after that Paqueta chance, and as you kind of mentioned here, Mike, it's very lazy defending again. Probably a bit critical because Bowen and Kerr have probably been working really hard at this point, and we are naturally dropping deeper, trying to hold on to the 3 points. But Downs is fresh in this point. He'd only come on in the last 10-15 minutes, so we should really have a better structure than this. And you can kind of see Anachu, the 7-foot god in the middle, just lurking. But you kind of, how did you see this developing, and what do you think could have been done better to potentially stop this cross from happening in the first place?
Yeah, what frustrates me is it was actually the one time that we lost Ward-Prowse in the game. And I can't have a go at Kehrer because he was sold short by his teammates here. Really, he should have been the one tracking I think it's their left back. I think it was Perraud who was coming inside. That should have been Kehrer tracking him so he could stay tight to Zuma. And also then you've got Rice, Bowen and Downs. And between them, they all do pretty much nothing, really.
Yeah.
And it causes us a problem because none of them really take any true responsibility in the situation. Bowen, I suppose, is probably the only one who tries to, but again, there's really poor communication because once Ward-Prowse gets the ball, he plays it out wide. At this point, there's not necessarily any threat if we go out to press. But we then come to here and, Kehrer's having to step right out. Rice has also got his back to, I think that'll be their left back because I think that's Sulemana is on the wing there. So Rice has got his back to it. Obviously, look how many players Southampton have in our box, but we're not really marking as well. Yeah. So there's a 3v2 at the back post. Say Rice has got his back turned. Kehrer is in a bit of a no man's land because he can't really go out and press. He can't really, he can't actually drop back in because if he drops back, then he gives the winger a chance to then obviously burst down the wing. So he's been sold short by both Downs and Bowen and really Rice as well in this situation. Rice has tried to cover him, but as I say, Rice has just left his man completely unmarked as well. Now, what happens is Downs doesn't just kind of lingers where he is. Downs or Bowen should have gone to the winger. One of those should have gone to the winger and taken that responsibility. But what needed to happen was whoever went to the winger then told the other, you need to drop on Ward-Prowse. Now, arguably, Bowen should have stayed in his position and Downs come out to the left winger. That would have meant that Kehrer could have tucked in a little bit more. It meant that Rice could then potentially not have to worry about his position, because I would say positionally he's quite poor in this situation. And because we just, from my point of view, we completely balls that up from a defensive point of view. Look, we're both, we've got obviously Ward-Prowse completely on his own. The two players on the edge in any kind of position to press him is both Downs and Bowen, but they're both in absolute no man's land. And when the ball is crossed in, it goes straight onto under his head. It's a damn good header as well. We were just lucky, really, that when he makes contact, it kind of loops. So, it then hits the crossbar. Fortunately, I think also we have Aguirre there to add a little bit of extra pressure. But I was disappointed in Downs and Bowen in that situation because, as I say, at that point, or at least when you look at it here, where they are, Bowen's gone to press Ward-Prowse. Now, Rice or Downs should be now, or really Downs should be sprinting out. When you actually watch the sequence, you even see Kehrer as he's moving across to get in a position to defend what could develop, in terms of if their winger tries to attack down to the byline, he's actually pointing out to the edge of the area, pointing out towards Ward-Prowse. And Downs doesn't move. He just kind of drifts into a position to defend nothing. Bowen obviously chases down the ball and then ball gets played back. It's just really poor because the one player is trying to communicate and tell them where to go, and they're either not doing it or they're just not recognizing the threat. They're not looking around and going, that's Ward-Prowse. All game, we tried to marshal him, and we marshaled him well. And one of the ways we marshaled him very well, which is something that no one's actually talked about, which is actually we have to praise the team for, we gave away no silly fouls within 30 yards of our area.
Yeah.
Nowhere did we give them a chance to essentially have a free shot at our goal with Ward-Prowse. Now, for as bad as we played, that also tells you how well we defended, because we defended that middle space really well, gave away no fouls, and at no point in the game did Ward-Prowse get to have a chance to have a free kick in 30 yards of our goal centrally. That's an incredible effort. Very rarely happens in football that you manage to have that much discipline. It's very much like a rugby thing where it's always talk about you don't give away silly penalties where you can then have a conversion or a kick, especially centrally. And that's something that we did. It was very much like that disciplined rugby piece when you watch rugby, when it's always about you don't give away penalties in these positions to these types of players. And we did that successfully. And I think that's something that I've not seen anyone really talk about or praise. And I think that's something that really does have to be praised. See, that one situation we in effect almost did give him a free kick because we gave Ward-Prowse so much space he could stop the ball, get out of his feet, and then whip it in. He had time to put it onto his stronger foot. That just tells you how bad we defended it. But fortunately for us, it then hit a crossbar. I think after that, actually, it woke everyone back up. We played really professionally after that. We ran down the clock. We were much tighter with the ball. We were smart in the area. I think Antonio, at one point, I thought he was going to do his Crystal Palace job again.
Yes,
in the wing, and he looked like he was going to cross it, but then he actually stopped himself and kind of held it in the corner. But we got lucky in that thing. Southampton had a lot of shots in the second half. I don't think any of them were particularly of any danger, really.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't remember them threatening at all. I think the only one was that header, and maybe one more where Fabianski had a pretty comfortable save down low. But other than that, other than that, we really defended well. Like you mentioned, in that middle block and final third, we really stopped them from doing anything. I mean, especially down the flanks. I think Emerson and Kehrer especially deserve a lot of credit for their defensive contributions yesterday. Because
Emerson was absolutely spent when he came off. He was absolutely spent.
I mean, he came off before the end, didn't he? And he was meant to be playing with a virus as well. So he put an absolute shift in. And I think one thing we've said about Emerson when he first came was he's going to be good, better on the ball. He's got a bit more pace. He's better technically. He's going to give us a bit more attacking. But defensively is where I've been really impressed because he's been so much better there. He's been so much more solid and playing in a back four like he did yesterday. He showed that he can, very much hold his own in that position. And I think as long as we're aware of what we need to do in that middle bit, I think we're going to come onto this in a second in our summary. But the fullbacks were really good yesterday defensively. I don't understand the criticism Kehrer got, but looking at Emerson, he was really good yesterday, and especially in the first half going forwards as well. He was our main attacking outlet with Benrahma. So I think overall, we definitely deserved the victory. I came out of the stadium just a sigh of relief, really, that we'd got the win. That was the main thing. And yeah, we knew it was going to be a scrappy performance. It didn't need to be a 4-0 like Forest. We just needed 3 points, and that's exactly what we got. So to be fair to Moyes, I'd say he got it pretty much spot on with what he wanted to do in that match, because he nullified Southampton, like you mentioned. We did not give Ward-Prowse anything. The one time we did, they almost scored. And again, that's just a lack of composure at the end. But overall, we created some decent chances. And again, on another day, we would have seen a 3-0 scoreline. So I'm not too displeased at all with the performance. I think the initial reaction coming away was a bit deflating, a bit like, It was kind of a bit of a crap game to watch. But it doesn't matter. We're not going to remember that performance at the end of the season if it keeps us up with those points. So overall, pretty happy with it. I think the one thing that we need to take away from that is the midfield three, because we can't continue with that midfield three. If we go into that Newcastle game and we see that same trio of Rice, Paqueta and Souček, it just can't continue. I mean, I know rating apps are often off with their kind of accuracy, but there's a very glaringly obvious issue there. And Souček was absolutely abysmal. And I think it needs to be spoken about because it's going to cost us if we keep persisting with it. I know Souček's done a lot of good for us, and he kind of kept us up during lockdown with the goals that he scored, propelled us into Europe, but he's just declined since then. And we've got better players that can play in that position. So who would you want to see come in against Newcastle for him? Because surely he cannot go with Souček again. I'd be really surprised if he picks him again. You're on mute.
Sorry, yeah. I was quite disappointed with Downs when he came on, to be honest. Bearing in mind he had a lot of energy. I don't think not only did he not really get into the game, I don't think he really affected it that much.
I just don't think it's his position. I just don't think he looks comfortable playing there.
Yeah,
I think he'd rather be the one, picking up the ball from deeper and being that kind of anchor. And he doesn't really do that when he's playing. He'll come on in that right channel.
He was playing as an anchor because Paqueta was playing on that right-hand side, and obviously had a bit more of a freer role. But I don't think he did much when he came on. I think by contrast, Fornal came on the moment, one of the first times he gets the ball, he's almost put him through Antonio.
Yeah.
For me, when I look at it, Newcastle, the problem is they got quite a strong midfield. They've got Guimaraes, they sometimes play Joe Littleton in there as well. They've got really good mobility, good strength. So you kind of look at the options and go, well, maybe Lanzini, maybe Fornal, maybe he isn't the best because they lack strength. I don't personally think Downs is the player many talk around as Downs, much as held as the replacement for Declan Rice. I don't think he is that player. Therefore, I can't in good conscience say he should be in that starting three, because I don't personally believe he's a starting three player for West Ham United. And I don't think he should be. I think he can develop, but again, he's a year older than Declan Rice. We talk about him like he's 21. He's not 21. He's 24, 25 years old. He's more developed than I think people are actually stating, to be honest. And he's probably almost as near to his top level as he's going to be. But I do think we need extra mobility, and we need an extra bit of a ball retention, and also being able to when we got the ball, to be able to penetrate the opposition. So I do think we have to look at Lanzini, and we do have to look at Fornals. I would maybe, at this point, probably go Pip Fornals for the time being. I do think in other games where maybe their midfields are maybe a little less more mobile, actually having Lanzini, who is yet a little bit slighter, actually is probably better sometimes against teams where they have, a big kind of cumbersome midfield or a number in midfield, because his mobility is better and he can move around and has a bit more pace to get away than, say, Fornals does. So for me, I would probably go Fornals at first, but I would be rotating those two in and out. I think Souček now is someone you bring on to help us close a game. When you're going to get a barrage from the opposition and you need someone just to be in there to be, essentially to get his head on things, to sit in the middle.
I also think we've seen that enough of Paqueta now to establish that he will offer so much more defensively than people think. So we can play Rice Paqueta as kind of the Rice is the 6, Paqueta is the 8, and then you can have someone like Fornals or Lanzini in there who's going to control that midfield and give us a little bit more of a license and a connection between the midfield and the attack. Because again, Danny Ings yesterday completely isolated, and I think just to kind of end it, David Moyes' comments after the game about Ings, I mean, it was absolutely absurd. I could not believe it. Again, he's kind of, we've spoke about his misprofiling, but that took it to a new level for me, saying that we need to get some time to adjust to how Ings plays. I mean, been in the Premier League for about 20 years. Do you not know how he plays by now? But we'll get onto that in another video.
Because centre forward, penalty box centre forward, and we need to get more in and around him. It's like, well, yes, this is the same thing that we've been talking about with Paqueta, with Scamacca. Get people in and around. Obviously, Scamacca is a more rounded player than Danny Ings. Danny Ings really operates primarily in the penalty box, which is why he always works brilliantly in a tandem with two up top. So again, we resisted the temptation of bringing on Antonio to play up top with Ings. We might have then got, as Moyes puts it, nicked a goal. That's another thing that frustrates me. It's always about nicking a goal, nicking a result. It's never about taking chances. It's never about creating chances. It's never about finishing off our chances or, securing a victory. It's never the positive one. It's all about, well, maybe we nick one. It's like, it may be a turn of phrase, but it also has, in sometimes the connotations of what it kind of, pushes out is that you don't have the confidence that we can go and control and win a game. You think that we have to go and nick a game or we have to nick a goal. So when we do something, it's against the runner play. And as we said, and we said it constantly, things happen in moments as opposed to something you create. Yeah. So that's what we're just going to have to see until now, until the end of the season. Hope we have enough of those moments in matches that are going to see us up, because we do play in moments, and it's so obvious that we do, because, look at all of the chances we created. And Alisson again, Souček will probably play to mark down Burn at set plays because we'll play for the points. So I think overall, let's take the positive out of it, that we got the win. We're now out of the relegation zone, up to 14th. It just looks a little bit better. We're only a point off the relegation zone, so still a lot of work to do. But we're going to that Newcastle game full of a bit more confidence. I know they're going to be confident as well, but our home form's really starting to pick up again, which is nice to see. We beat Southampton, we drew with Villa, we beat Forest before that. So we're starting to establish a bit more of a routine. We got out of it towards the back end of last year with, back-to-back defeats against Palace and Leicester at home. So it's nice to start playing with a bit more confidence. We've kept another clean sheet, which is rare for this season. And I think, one thing to kind of mention before we end is Fabianski, because I think a lot of people, including myself, were calling for Areola to come in a lot. Fabianski's just come back after that injury, and I thought he put in probably his best performance of the season. He made a couple of really good saves, looked very, very comfortable when he was kind of gathering the ball, and it just seemed to calm the defense, which we haven't seen enough this season. So I think he deserves a big shout out from yesterday as well. But before we end, Mike, give me a man of the match. Who you picking from yesterday's performance? It was a close call, but I'm going to say again, it's between him and Paqueta. I think Paqueta was defensively outstanding. Yeah. Tried to make things happen in the game. As I say, had he probably got a goal, I might have gone for Paqueta just because I think that he tried to make things tick. But I think Ged was solid defensively. Made some great tackles, also made a couple of great breaks out of the defensive line to progress the ball. So, for me, Aged is my man of the match.
No, I completely agree with that. I was going to pick again as well. I think him and Zuma, especially having those as the partnership, is so key for us. And again, to Moyes' kind of credit, or to Moyes' kind of, to give him some maybe more plaudits than people are saying. I mean, I'm not praising him at all, but he hasn't had that defensive partnership at all this season. And every time they've played together, we've looked so much better, and it just provides us a lot more balance in centre back. So again, definitely man of the match. He was excellent. Got his first goal, which was nice to see. And yeah, hopefully we can just, build on that clean sheet, stay defensively solid against Newcastle, because it's going to be a much tougher test on Wednesday night. But we need to do a lot more in midfield and connecting that midfield to the attack, because we're going to probably have fewer moments against Newcastle if we play that same way. So it's going to be important that we look to create a little bit more and try and find those openings in Newcastle, because they're going to play a similar way. They're going to press high. They're going to squeeze us up the pitch, and we're going to have to have those moments that Moyes likes to talk about to kind of be clinical. And again, another thing to take from this game is we need to be clinical if we're gonna stay up this season. So yeah, we'll take the 1-0 win. We'll take the 3 points. We said these 3 games were absolutely massive for this football club. We've got past the first test. We now go into the second one on Wednesday night. Yeah, we can be happy. Don't worry about the performance too much. It was a good, solid defensive performance. And yeah, I think we're all kind of in agreement that there is still work to be done. But overall, we'll take the win. We'll take the points. We move on to Wednesday with a bit more of a smile on our face, a very small one, which we'll keep disguised. But Mike, that's going to be it for today. Make sure to leave a like on the video, everyone. Subscribe to the channel. We're very close to 500 subscribers now. So would massively appreciate it if you haven't already to hit that subscribe button. And yeah, Mike, one thing left to say.
Yep. Come on, you guys.